the facts say that you're failing at the moment in terms of targeted funding for Māori. In your Minister Cabinet paper entitled Government Action Plan to Support Māori Economic Development, it states that Māori economic growth is a portfolio priority for the Māori development portfolio. And it's focused on improving wealth amongst iwi Māori and New Zealand generally. And that's absolutely spot on. Problem is we've got a decrease right across the portfolio. So a couple of questions, and if you could be succinct, because I've got a number of other questions too. You've had this decrease in terms of Māori funding, targeted funding across the portfolio, and you have a Deputy Prime Minister who believes funding us is racist. Clear as a bell. Said that in terms of Māori television and Māori radio. And it's been on public media too. So how are you dealing with that? Because we can hear your commitment. I don't think anyone here would doubt your commitment to kaupapa Māori and to our people. But you have a Deputy Prime Minister undermining you at the moment. Have you dealt with that? Have you got a plan going forward? How do you traverse that area given your commitment, given your department's commitment? Is there hope for Māori given where your Deputy Prime Minister lies, where his views lie?
Well, I think there are a number of views in that commentary, and there might have been a question.
The question is, have you dealt with the Deputy Prime Minister?
And there was a reflection on a view of one of my colleagues that funding, Māori funding, is racist. I don't share that view. I have a different view. And I'd really appreciate everyone in this meeting whose friends are journalists actually to amplify my view. Because what often happens is that certain views are given some really enhanced coverage, and others that I think are just as legitimate are not. So the first thing is that we have a very important series of commitments emanating out of Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the Treaty of Waitangi, whether or not those are commitments around good kāwanatanga or rangatiratanga or ōrite-tanga, however tangas we might want to refer to. And that provides a very constitutional bedrock for our existence as a country. It amplifies and reflects on things that were already existing. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when you consider the very disproportionate circumstances that our communities face, and the fact, and I mentioned this before in my response to Takatai's question about young people, that within us we have a lot of responses and answers and solutions to those disproportionalities. So, for example, gave that Te Wharekura Kiriakirioa reference around high attendance numbers in a decile 1 type arrangement. And part of that is motivated by cultural connection between the kaiako and the rangatei and their whānau, but also the motivation that comes with kids going to wharekura in that particular Area 5 crossroads in Hamilton. It's very consistent with my way of thinking that funding those with solutions and outcomes for the targets and priorities that the government had is actually not necessarily a convenient thing to do, it's a prudent thing to do. So when you come down to how do we resolve o tautoko whānau and hapu iwi Māori organisations that are geared towards delivering solutions in our community that actually probably in some ways better than the government delivering the solution, actually I'm all for that. Right. Why did we give money to the Māori Women's Welfare League and the Māori Women's? Because we actually believe that there is a way to do that. So whilst there's been a comment.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, the Minister's getting very long-winded questions. We've got 4 minutes left.
So you got a quick say?
Thank you for turning up late. So
hold on. We're chewing up time with this. Please stop.
Yeah.
I would just respectfully ask, because Steve is
Turn up on time.
Order. The minister's not answering that. He's barely addressing the question. We want to know how he's dealing with the Deputy Prime Minister's strategy in terms of undermining and actually being successful in knocking out Māori funding.
Well, no,
you have not given us one answer or any reflection on that.
What I've said is this, is that there's a number of people, not just in this room, but in this precinct, that have different views. The Deputy Prime Minister and I don't share a view around that particular kaupapa. I have a different view. And I've given a context as to where my view
Yep.
comes from.
And that was the
also
answer that I heard,
Something
what he
that's,
responded.
something
Thank you,
that's,
Have you got a quick
yeah,
sub?
something that sits
Well-
consistently with this government's focus, which is delivering better public services as well as getting the economy back on track.
Thank you, Minister. Quick sub?
Can I just want to ask about a couple of the programs because, we've had, how can Māori then, given that position, have confidence in you, given that our targeted funding is being cut back, procurement, which you know all about, having been involved in that, it's been cut back. We've got Māori, we've got treaty clauses, Minister, that are being knocked right out. How can we have confidence in you as a minister when that type of strategy is happening with this government? All Māori initiatives are being attacked by the Deputy Prime Minister, and he has a clear strategy on that. How do we, and I appreciate what you're saying, but what is the strategy? How can you give Te Ao Māori some confidence,
Well, I
Minister
think
Potaka?
you have to be careful, Mr. Chair, dressing up opinions as facts. I think the view that all Māori initiatives have been
I
under
didn't say
attack
all, I didn't say
is
all.
unreasonable and inaccurate. That's the
didn't
first
say
thing.
all.
No, you did say all Māori initiatives.
Well, if I
The
did say,
second thing-
if I did say all, I'd say many, let me,
Okay,
many Māori initiatives are being
And some of those
attacked, which you would
initiatives-
agree with, I'm
And some of
sure.
those initiatives don't sync with the direction of travel this government is undertaking. Now, the view that all clauses, all initiatives are under attack, okay, we've cleared that up and you're saying many. There are some things that we actually think are going to be better delivered through having very targeted, kaupapa-oriented funding. And this government and I, as the minister, are in a space where we've got serious fiscal issues. And I don't need to belabor that, but taking the debt up from 5 billion to 100 billion did not help over 5 or 6 years prior to us coming in. The second thing is that all agencies have basically cut back except for health, education, defence and police. All agencies have had to take a haircut. That includes my agencies and Department of Conservation, Te Puni Kōkiri, and housing. The view that we don't have confidence because your agency has less money than last year, I think is misplaced given the fiscal context. What we are really focused on, and you made mention of the Māori Development Fund, is tilting the support within the Māori Development Fund towards economic development, rather than bits and bobs all over the place with different funding drivers. We are definitely driving into Māori economic development. That should be no surprise, given where the government is basically focused its attention, which is getting the economy back on track, supplemented by law and order and public services.
Okay, we're
issues.
going to close this section out with a final question from Steve. Steve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, the Māori development budget on the whole is a smaller budget by comparison to others. And yet this budget's been cut by 9.5%, which is greater than the 6.5% the minister was expecting of all ministries. Is that consistent with the bias of this government that has a suite of anti-Māori, anti-treaty legislation, or is it a reflection of a failure on your part as minister to advocate successfully?
Well, I think.
And secondly, I'll just do a follow-up. How do you deal with the demoralisation amongst the ministry officials and staff in the context of a government that clearly has such a negative view of targeted investment in Māori development?
Let's clear up some of the disinformation you've inculcated in this hui. The 9.6% decrease is made up of 4.8%, which was time-limited funding, which was committed to by a government you supported in 2020 and 2023 as the Green Party. So let's get that straight. There was time-limited funding that's coming out of the budget. That was time-limited, and when you had a Labour-led majority government that didn't put it in the baseline, that's actually on you as a Labour-Green coalition. Second thing is this, is that all agencies, I think, except Defence, Police, Health and Education, have had, as you described it, a bigger cut than the savings, 4.8%, that's gone through the Māori development portfolio. And I'm actually very proud of the kaimahi that sit alongside me and beside me for the work that they do out in the communities. The third thing, which is in response, I think, to your conjecture around how the government is basically anti-Māori, I think is very misplaced.
Demoralisation of staff?
I don't hear that from the staff. I actually think, especially the staff in my office, they love working for me in 4.4.
Okay, I think, we're going to take a break.